Welcome everyone. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at another one of the very important features of our multimeter, and that is to take a continuity test. So if I just bring this up closer to the camera, to use the continuity feature, we actually move this rotary dial to this little symbol right here, and you can see that it's got this marking that looks like it's making a sound. And that's because a lot of people also refer to a continuity test as beep testing, and we'll see why in just a second. So I'm going to switch my meter over to the continuity test setting, and we have it here. And what the continuity test means or tests for is that we have electrical continuity between the 2 points in this probe. So of course, if we are able to just touch these together, we'll see that it starts to give us this nice beeping. And that indicates to us that there is a path for electricity from this probe to this probe, which is something that's very important to be able to test on circuits. Just to give you another idea of what I mean by that, of course, I've got this alligator clip here, which is essentially just a straight wire. And if I connect it to this red probe, and then as soon as I touch it to this probe, we get the beeping, again, because electrical signal or an electrical current is able to flow between these two. Now, this is maybe honestly the most important tool and what I use my multimeter for the most when I'm hardware hacking. And this is because this allows us to be able to tell where signals or currents are flowing on the boards, especially if we don't have a schematic. We can do what's called beeping it out. So we can, touch from different pins on things like chips to output pins and determine where those are going on the circuit. And we can also trace through vias. So you remember when we were looking at the board, we have those vias that go down to different layers. So if we're trying to figure out, our signal disappears down a via, then we can go and probe the other vias and trace where that signal is coming through. So now that we have a little bit of an idea about how this beep testing works, I'm just going to move this to the side, bring the board back, and show a few areas that we can beep out or start testing on the board. I've got my board upside down here because I do want to make a connection from this ground that we already identified when we were measuring the voltage, because one of the first things that I'm going to beep out or check is see if I can identify any other grounds on the board. And you don't necessarily need one of these alligator clips or this third hand to do this. I could do it without it, but it's kind of hard to show on the camera or film. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to connect this alligator clip to here, and then I don't have to try and reach under the board. And I'll just leave that connected, and I'm just going to flip this board over now. All right, so I've got the board flipped over, and again, I have connected this green jack to the underside of the negative pin on this input voltage jack here. And you can do it by just putting the probe underneath here. It's just kind of a pain to film, so that's why I have this alligator clip. The other thing that I just want to quickly call out in case you didn't notice is we don't have any power supply to the board. I have it completely unplugged. And when we're doing these beep tests, we don't want any power. We just want to be checking for the continuity or the electrical signal that comes from our multimeter. So we'll leave the board powered off. I'm going to connect the black end to this here so that it's connected to ground. And when I was visually inspecting the board, and this is something that you'll get used to, I did identify this interesting top piece of bare metal pad here. And you generally won't see these bare metal pads left on a board like this unless they're connected to ground. One of the reasons for that is they just can become an antenna and add noise or interference. So when I saw this, it stood out to me that I thought that this was ground, and I just want to verify that now with the continuity tester. So when we touch to this, see that I immediately get a beep, and that does confirm for us that that is ground. So what I'm going to leave as a challenge now for everyone, so if you want to pause the video after this, is to just go through the board and probe out and see if you can find any other grounds on the board. There's one that's actually labeled, so there's an easy one, but there's a couple other grounds on here, so I'll just pause it now and see if you can beep out and find some of the grounds. All right, did you find any? I'm just going to show a few of them. So I know, for example, that there is one over here, I believe. Yeah, so we know that we have a ground point over here. And then, of course, we've got one labeled over here that is a ground as well. And we're going to be coming back to these guys later because they are going to be quite important later on. So that just goes to show how we can start to test beeping out and checking for continuity. We're going to be using this a bit more throughout the course and helping us to identify where different pins and different connections travel on the board itself. That wraps up this lesson, and I will see you over in the next video.